Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran jazz bassist Tom Kennedy. We talked about surviving COVID, his new 2024 album called New Start, and his life in music. As one of the top electric and acoustic bass players on the planet, this is his sixth solo album and features the Grammy-winning and modern drummer Hall of Famer Dave Weckl, as well as performances from Eric Marienthal, Randy Brecker, Mike Stern, Bill Evans, and so many others. His musical roots were on the acoustic bass, an instrument he started playing at the age of 9 and took to so naturally that within a few years he was performing with internationally known players like Freddie Hubbard, James Moody, Nat Adderley, Sonny, Stitt, and the great Stan Kenton. Gaining a reputation that soon traveled beyond his native St. Louis, Tom relocated to New York City, where he quickly gained work with multiple groups. Dig this story.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape. Tom, great to meet you, man. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm good, Joe. How are you?
Everything's great. I'm looking forward to delving into your new work and kind of peeling back the layers of your life and music. And to begin that process, I want to know, first and foremost, 4 years ago we were kind of wrapping our heads around how long this pandemic was going to last and how it was going to affect us. And I know it really did specific things to musicians. How did you survive that time period? How did it subsequently change you or affect this new album, New Start?
Oh, directly. Directly. In fact, my album before this is entitled Stories, and both of these albums were basically conceived during that period. There was a point, New York got hit really, really early on, and we were, just kind of, everybody was just kind of in their apartments and just kind of like, wondering what the heck to do. And I was talking to a lot of friends at that time, and they were just, we just had no idea how we were gonna deal with all of this. And I just happened to, it was really strange because it just, I had just started working on some new material, and I hadn't written music in quite a while. I was working with a lot of people. I was touring with a lot of people, and it was kind of the last thing on my mind. And when everything stopped, I realized that I had started working on some new material that I just not looked at in a few months. And I started, I opened it up on the computer. And I have to tell you that that was kind of the genesis of these projects. I just realized that I could spend a lot of time working on this stuff, and spend a lot of time deciding how I wanted to arrange everything. And I did it all in Pro Tools, and I did it all with synthesized sounds. So I was basically kind of composing the entire group, in real time, so I could hear exactly what I was composing. And, some of the tunes I kind of had an idea of, like the sections that I wanted to compose. And then other songs were just kind of led me to the next thing, So it was a really interesting way of writing the music. But I would have to say, the pandemic directly affected, the kind of made the decision for me to write these albums.
So talk to me a little bit about what you're hoping the listener gets from this.
I'm sorry?
Tell me what you're hoping the listener gets from this project. What are you hoping they get out of it?
Well, it's just a piece of me, it's really just, kind of where I'm at musically. The stuff that I tried to kind of give examples of things that I like to play. I think also just the experience of the music, kind of taking you in a direction, kind of taking you on a path, on a journey. Because when I was writing, it was certainly all about that. It was all about the journey. Like I said, some of the songs were kind of preconceived, but the majority of the music was kind of, it was composed, like on a day-by-day basis. So I would get a piece of something done, and I would be happy with it, and I would, I'd stop. And the next day I'd open it up, and I would just kind of, expound on whatever it was that I had, so far, and just write a little bit more, day by day. And, as you mentioned with the pandemic, it was it was very much day by day and week by week and month by month. So, there was a lot of time to really just kind of let it do its thing naturally. And, there were some days when I wouldn't work. If I opened it up and I didn't have any thoughts or didn't have any idea or I didn't feel particularly creative, I would just allow that day to go by. And so it's really kind of about the journey. And, the first album of the two, as I mentioned, is called Stories. And so that's kind of where I was at, just trying to build these stories, these different songs, and create different vibes and, as I said, represent things that I was into at the time. And New Start is just kind of a new version of that. And I know that the title might be misleading, as far as the pandemic goes, but it was more for me, it was more about, okay, I did this crazy album called Stories and wrote all this stuff and, did it in such a way that, over weeks and, just kind of creating as I went along. And once that was over, I sat there for a minute and then I was thinking, okay, what do I do now? And, but I still had these ideas in me and I wanted to get these musical ideas out. And I thought, well, I guess this is a new start. And, this is just, I was just sitting there one day and I thought, yeah, I have to keep going with this. So that, is kind of a direct, I just decided that would make the most sense just to call it what it is.
So you had mentioned the word journey when you were talking about the album, and I want to hone in on that a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about your journey. Where were you born and raised, and how did this love of music, and more specifically jazz, become this long-term career for you in the world of music?
Well, I started playing at a very young age. I grew up in a musical family. My brother was an amazing jazz pianist by the name of Ray Kennedy and played with John Pizzarelli for a decade and did a lot of things in the jazz world. And he and I, when we were kids, played a lot together. And in fact, we used to play with a lot of musicians that would come through St. Louis, Missouri, which is our hometown. And, back in those days, it was, the early 70s, and there were a lot of musicians like James Moody, Sonny Stitt, Freddie Hubbard, people like that would come through, and they would actually build tours, just visiting cities, just coming by themselves and getting local rhythm sections to play with them. And so, Ray and I kind of became the first call guys, to do that kind of thing. But going back, my father had a music store. My mom and dad had a music store. And, we were just always, we kind of always honed in on music, whatever was playing in the store, whatever records we were selling. And my dad was a professional trumpet player before he opened the store and played in dance bands and, kind of dabbled in smaller jazz groups and things like that. And, always had a Dizzy Gillespie record or a Charlie Parker record for us to listen to, and was really into that. So we kind of got we got into jazz early, and we got in through our father, and Ray and I both kind of ran with that. And I remembered Ray one day just started playing, kind of dabbling on the piano a little bit and just playing some little melodies and things. And pretty soon, I just remember it was like maybe a couple of weeks or a month. I mean, he was really starting to put it together. And, was really into the jazz thing, and I was into it too as far as listening, but I didn't know really, how I was going to apply that. And there was a funny story because my brother was in middle school at the time. I was in grade school, and he brought home an upright bass to practice because the orchestra teacher had asked him if he could learn the bass parts for an orchestra concert that they had coming up in like a week because their bass player got sick. And he was the kind of guy that everybody knew he could just do it. He could just learn things very quickly and pretty much play any instrument he wanted. And they already knew that at that age and in middle school, which was pretty phenomenal. And so he brought home the bass to kind of practice and try to learn these parts. And I came home from school and I saw this thing, and I was just knocked out by it. And there was nobody home when I got there, but this huge instrument was in our music room. And I just remember walking around the thing and kind of touching it and just being fascinated by it. And at one point I pulled the string, and I remember it was the A string, which is crazy. And I pulled the A string and I heard that sound, and that resonance of the instrument. And I think it was from that point, it just resonated in me. And I wanted to play that instrument. I just wanted to play that. And I always liked bass. I remember old Beatles records, always being able to pick out the bass parts. And I think that when I heard that sound of that instrument live, that was it. It was just a game changer for me.
So you clearly dedicated your life to the jazz arts. Why do you love jazz?
I think it's expression. I think it's an expression like nothing else. And I think it's a community of people that kind of understand that. And there is also, for me, a community of jazz musicians that reach out to to the listener in live performance and in recordings, and it's a way to communicate, and it's an interesting way because it can be educational for someone that is not necessarily a musician. For me, as difficult as it is, I find it challenging to try to explain what it is that we do and how we feel about it. And, you kind of discover that it's similar to other things. I've always said that if somebody is a great doctor or an amazing lawyer or just has an affinity for it, there's a very common thing there. There's a common creative thing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the arts. But it's just interesting for me to talk to other people in other lines of work and just to try to communicate that, between myself and them. And it's really interesting, and I've gotten into some very interesting conversations that way.
I have no doubt. So at the end of the day, Tom, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who I am I think I'm just somebody that wants to spread, the talent that I've been given for good, and not in I've never considered myself, like I never wanted to be a jazz star. I just really never thought about that. What I want to do is do what I do the best I can do and share that with people the best I can. And which is really the other reason that I wanted to do these records. I've had other records under my name, other recordings under my name that were not original music. And, some of it original. I've written, a good deal of the music that's on my previous recordings, but these were all me. And, that's kind of the message. I just want, people to know what it is that I do. And if you like it, that's great, and if you like part of it, that's great. And, that's really kind of who I think I am.
So, New Start, if anyone wants to pick up a physical copy or find out about live shows or anything else that you've done, anything in your world, where can they go?
Well, New Start is available digitally, on Apple Music and all of the download platforms. I'm only selling it live on live shows at this point. So that's it's a little difficult to get right now, and I'm working on trying to get physical distribution up soon. But Autumn Hill Records is the record label, and you can go there directly to autumnhillrecords.com, and they can kind of lead you in the right direction. And as soon as it is available physically, you'll know about it through them as well.
Wonderful, man. This has been great. Hey, thank you so much for taking a minute out today, Tom. Best of luck with the album and everything else. I appreciate it.
Joe, thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in St. Louis, Kansas City, New York City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Tom for his energy, cool, and story. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.